Recording in progress.
With options for virtual participation. For those attending in person, complete a yellow request to speak slip and hand it to the clerk. If participating remotely, use the raise your hand feature in Zoom and you will be called on at the appropriate time. If calling in via phone, press *9 to raise your hand, and when called upon, press *6 to unmute. These options for public comment will remain available until I close the public comment period for that specific item. And finally, we welcome speakers providing public comment, but please be advised this is a limited public forum. As such, speakers must stay on topic if speaking to a particular agenda item. If speakers fail to follow these rules, they will be warned, and if they continue to disregard our rules, their opportunity to speak will be ended. The first item on our agenda is public comment. Members of the public wishing to comment on any item not appearing on the agenda tonight may address the Planning Commission at this time. State law prevents the Commission from taking action on any matter not on the agenda. Your comments may be referred to staff for follow-up. Public comment is generally limited to a total of 15 minutes. However, that is subject to the Commission's discretion and can be extended if the Commission wishes to do so. I will go ahead and open the general public comment period. Again, this is for items that are not on the agenda tonight. If you wish to speak for general public comment, please submit your yellow speaker slip now or raise your hand if participating remotely over Zoom. Heleva, do we have any speakers for general public comment?
Through the chair, we have no in-person public commenters nor via Zoom.
Okay, great. I will go ahead and close the public comment period. Moving on to our next item, a public hearing. Heleva, would you mind reading item number 1?
Item 1, 668 East 3rd Avenue, new multifamily residential development, PA 2025-025.
Thank you. And I will actually turn the mic over to my fellow commissioner, Shamkol.
Thank you. Just in abundance of caution, and based on and due to the fact that I attended this public informational meeting on March 19th, 2025, and I did take a position on the project, I will be recusing myself from this agenda item.
Okay, thank you. We will see you back in chambers after the item. All right, we will start with a staff presentation, followed by the applicant's presentation, and then public comments. Members of the public will be given 2 to 3 minutes to speak, depending on the number of speakers. The applicant may also be given 5 minutes at the end of public comment to respond. Once the public hearing is closed, I may ask the staff to respond to any of the public comments, and then the commission will ask clarifying questions, deliberate, and render a decision.
All right. Good evening, Planning Commissioners and San Mateo community members.
My name is Liz Gagliardi. I'm an associate planner with the Community Development Department, and I will be presenting for tonight's item. This project is for a proposed 8-story multifamily residential building located at 668 East 3rd Avenue, also referred to as the Gateway Project. Quick overview before I dive into the presentation. First, I will cover some background on the project, then move into a code and policy review, wrapping up with a summary of the public notice that was sent out and staff recommendation to the Planning Commission on this project. Starting with some project history. This application began with a preliminary application under the Housing Crisis Act, or Senate Bill 330, which was filed on November 13th, 2024. Then the applicant held the required neighborhood informational meeting on March 19th, 2025, followed shortly after by their first submittal of the formal planning application on April 2nd, 2025. Since that initial submittal, the project has been reviewed by city staff and refined by the applicant to ensure compliance with applicable local codes and state laws. The project is exempt from CEQA under Assembly Bill 130, which is a newer CEQA exemption that I will cover some more in the later half of this presentation. So this map here shows the project location in blue, which, as you can see, is just to the east of downtown San Mateo and southeast of the downtown Caltrain station. Zooming in a little bit, the project site in the middle, outlined in yellow, is bounded by East 3rd Avenue to the north, South Delaware Street to the west, South El Dorado Street to the east, and East 4th Ave to the south. On the project site, there is an existing 1-story commercial building, which some photos of are shown to the left of the screen, and this will be demolished. To the south, there are 2 parcels on the same block as the project site, which are not a part of the project scope. These contain an existing office building and gas station, which will remain. I've also highlighted to the lower left of the screen a Block 21, which is located just across South Delaware Street from the project. This is an improved entitlement that has not yet been built for a 6-story mixed-use building containing office and residential units that is currently awaiting construction. In addition to Block 21, there are several other development projects at various stages of completion surrounding the project site. So just wanted to highlight some of those here on the screen. Block 20 to the southwest of the project site is a 7-story mixed-use building containing office and residential. This is in the pre-application stages, so waiting on a formal submittal. Continuing to the southwest, Kiku Crossing is a completed city-owned 7-story, 100% affordable housing project nearby. Moving south from there, Bespoke is a 7-story, 71-unit affordable housing and office retail mixed-use building, which is currently under review. And then the Draeger site is also in the pipeline as an approved project not yet constructed for a 5-story mixed-use building. Then moving to the east of the project site, there's an existing apartment building, the Metropolitan Apartments, and to the northeast is 222 South Fremont. This site is currently vacant with an approved entitlement that has been abandoned. And as you can see to the northwest, the downtown Caltrain station is also close by. So now that we've looked at the project location, we can dive in a bit to what is proposed. As I mentioned before, the proposed project is 8-story multifamily residential building. It contains 73 covered parking stalls, which are split up between 1 level of below grade parking and garage space internal to the building on the ground and 2nd story. The garage entrance and exit are both off of South El Dorado Street. The upper floors are entirely residential units, containing a total of 128 units in the building. The project also includes some residential amenities, including a fitness center, some amenity decks on the 3rd and 8th floors, and a common room on the 8th floor. This chart shows some more detail for how those 128 units are broken up throughout the project. So it includes a mixture of studio, urban 1-bedroom, which is another type of studio unit with a small partition wall, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units. Of the 128 total units, 108 will be market rate and 20 will be affordable. So of those 20 affordable units, 10 will be allocated at the very low income level and another 10 at the moderate income level. This just shows the project site plan with the ground floor configuration. As you can see, the vehicle entrance and exit off of South El Dorado and units oriented along 3rd Avenue. So for this application, there are 2 planning entitlements that are required. The first being site plan and architectural review for the new multifamily building, and this does require city council approval since it exceeds 55 feet in height. It also requires a site development planning application for the removal of major vegetation. 9 trees will be removed, including 4 protected trees. So the project proposes replacement planting of 16 new trees and will be required to pay an in lieu fee for any remaining landscape unit value. Moving on to our code and policy review. The project site has a general plan land use designation of mixed use medium 2, which sets the height and density standards for the project site. Under the general plan, the maximum density is 99 dwelling units per acre, which calculates out to 64 units for the size of this site, and the maximum height is 6 stories. This project does include a density bonus request pursuant to state law, which I'll get into more detail on later on in the slides. So they are proposing to double the base density and exceed the height limit with density bonus. The project site is zoned CBDS, Central Business District Support, and it is also located within the downtown area plan, specifically in the Gateway sub-area. This also establishes some additional setbacks and stepbacks and the development standards for the site, which are summarized here in this chart. I'm happy to come back to these if there are questions later on. In addition to the local codes and policies, there are several state laws that apply to this project. The first one that I'll highlight here is the state density bonus law. This project includes a stacked density bonus, so they're receiving a 50% density increase for providing 15% of the base density units at the very low income level, and then another 50% density increase for providing an additional 15% of the base density at the moderate income level. Under state density bonus law, the project would be eligible for up to 3 concessions and unlimited waivers. And the project proposes to take full advantage of the allowable density increase, effectively doubling the base density of 64 units to provide 128 units. The applicant has not requested any concessions with this project, but has identified several waivers from development standards. This slide includes a summary of the many waivers that are applied for this project. They include waivers to zoning code standards related to loading berth requirements and turning radius for the parking garage ramps, as well as a waiver to the general plan building height standard to accommodate the additional 2 stories. And additionally, there are several waivers related to various objective design standards. In addition to state density bonus law, there are several other laws that apply to this project. These include the Housing Crisis Act, or Senate Bill 330, which for this project effectively freezes the development standards and fee structure in place at the time that the preliminary application was submitted. So that for this project is November 13th, 2024. Additionally, the project is subject to the Housing Accountability Act, which limits the city's ability to deny, reduce the density of, or render housing development projects infeasible if objective standards are met. Additionally, the project qualifies for exemption from the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, under a more recently passed exemption under Assembly Bill 130. This provides exemption for projects that meet specific qualifying criteria, which this project does meet, and also includes provisions for expedited review processes. Finally, this project is also within an area that meets the requirements of Assembly Bill 2097, which is a state law that removes minimum parking requirements for projects within 1/2 mile of a major public transit stop, which, as you'll recall, this project is quite close to the downtown Caltrain station, so qualifies for that exemption. In addition to state laws, the project must also comply with the city's below market rate inclusionary program for affordable housing. This project meets the local BMR requirements with the very low income affordable units provided. These units are distributed throughout the development and include unit sizes, types, and designs that are proportional to the rest of the development and in line with our local standards. The moderate units are provided in addition to the local BMR requirements, and those are being used to meet the density bonus. So moving on to the design review. This project meets several key elements of the city's objective design standards and also includes waivers for several standards that would otherwise preclude construction of the building. The project is designed with influences from a Mediterranean and Spanish Revival style with a contemporary expression. So I'll zoom into some more detailed views. We'll start here along East 3rd Avenue, where the project has 4 townhome style units, which are integrated into the larger building. As you can see here, these units have separate entrances with small front porches, decorative balconies, and planter box landscaping along the pedestrian route there. While the project includes waivers to some of the specific objective design standards for front entries, specifically in the gateway sub-area of the downtown specific plan, this design aims to integrate some of these elements to achieve a more pedestrian scale at the frontage along East 3rd Ave, while also including the high-rise design. This is another more detailed view of East 3rd Ave, those townhome style units. So you can see the front porches and some of the brick facade that will be proposed there. This view shows the main entry feature at the corner of East 3rd Ave and South Delaware Street. As you can see, the design includes some arches, decorative tile behind the archway features, and a cornice above the arches to further distinguish this main entry feature, which is one of the requirements of the objective design standards. There are also balconies or Juliet-style balconies provided at each unit, and while the step backs do not span the full facade, there are included some massing breaks, particularly looking at that 3rd floor deck area, which you can see a little better on this slide, which shows the full view from East 3rd. The project does include a waiver for some of the massing standards, particularly the objective design standards require a distinct base, body, and top. And while these are not defined completely across the full facade, they have provided some step backs, different colors, and different materials to still break up the facade in that way. This is the view from South Delaware Street. As you can see, some of the same massing breaks with that porch along the 3rd story, the balconies per unit, and decks along the top to kind of create that distinctive top feature. This is the other corner feature at East 3rd Ave and South El Dorado Street. This has been further defined through different design iterations to meet our corner treatment requirements of the objective design standards. This is an elevation view from South El Dorado Street. As you can see, this is where the vehicle entrance and exit are proposed. And finally, the rear elevation, the southwest side, which faces interior to the other 2 lots adjacent. This does include a blank wall along the first 2 stories, which is one of the waivers that the project has requested. But as you can see, they've included some stucco relief along that blank wall to break it up a bit, and it is limited to the parking garage area and facing internally to the project. So there have been efforts made to minimize the impact of that blank wall. Looking at the materials proposed for the project, the objective design standards do require projects to be built with high quality materials, which this project does meet, including stucco, brick veneer at the townhome treatments, terracotta roof tiles, metal details through balconies and windows, and that decorative blue tile that's proposed around the entry feature. Finally, I wanted to highlight some of the impact fees that this project will be subject to. This slide just includes estimates, so some of these numbers may be subject to change when we do the full calculations, but the project will be contributing to the city's child care development fee, park impact fees, wastewater capacity charge, school impact fees, a landscape unit in lieu fee for the tree removals, a public art in lieu fee, and transportation improvement fee. Finally, the project, as I mentioned before, is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Public Resources Code section 21080.66. This is that recent CEQA exemption that was enacted under Assembly Bill 130. This became effective as of June 20th, 2025, and requires expedited project review and decision timeline for projects that qualify. Additionally, there is a tribal consultation requirement built into AB 130. The city did send out tribal notice to the tribes affected, receiving back one request for consultation, and we did engage in the process of consultation with that tribe. For public noticing, the applicant did hold the required neighborhood meeting in March of 2025. There were 40 attendees, and comments received related to parking, traffic and construction impacts, and concern around loss of existing business in retail. Prior to this public hearing, notice was sent out 10 days in advance of the hearing to the required 1,000-foot radius, as well as the city's email list and interested parties. Finally, that brings us to our recommendations before the Planning Commission tonight. There are 3 conditions of approval that staff are proposing some modifications to. The first is regarding curb and gutter. As you can see on the slide here, the language has been adjusted slightly to further specify where curb and gutter reconstruction would be required. Additionally, the condition of approval that relates to traffic signal infrastructure, some language has been added to further clarify where these improvements would specifically apply related to this project. And finally, a condition of approval related to requirements for streetlights and infrastructure. This had referenced a photometric analysis prepared with the planning application, and the city has updated our checklist to defer the photometric plan to building permit submittal. So this language reflects that updated process. So it would be required for submittal prior to superstructure permit. And finally, that brings us to our recommendation before the Planning Commission tonight to recommend that the City Council adopt a resolution approving the project with the recommended modifications to the conditions of approval. That concludes my presentation. Thank you. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to go back to slides or answer those.
Thank you so much. Next, we will have the applicant's presentation.
Our project team is represented here as well, led by Alan Jones of Jones Architecture. Alan will be walking you through the project design momentarily. Other members of the team are here as well and can be available to address any specific questions that may come up here tonight. We all very much appreciate the opportunity to discuss the project proposal located at 668 East 3rd Avenue. Staff covered quite a bit in its staff report, and in its presentation provided a good overview of the project. Jonathan and I did want to take this opportunity to thank staff for their efforts to get us here this evening. This project has taken varying iterations over several years, and we're pleased to have settled on this multifamily residential application before you tonight. Before turning the presentation over to Alan, I wanted to provide some brief background on Prometheus. As you may know, Prometheus is an active real estate owner, investor, and developer. We're a family-owned private company, and our history dates back for over 50 years. Over those years, our primary focus has been housing, as both a longtime provider and owner-operator of primarily rental housing. Also, we typically develop for the long term, meaning we remain vested stakeholders within the communities within which we develop. This commitment is no better exemplified than right here in San Mateo. We've maintained a long-standing corporate and development presence here in San Mateo. We've resided in the city for decades and most recently constructed and moved into our downtown Brickline building. We own and manage over 13,000 apartment homes, most of which are here in the Bay Area, and more specifically here in the Peninsula and in the South Bay. Can you go to the next screen, Liz? Yeah, and on the screen we've included several of our properties and planned development projects in and around downtown San Mateo. These include Brickline, as well as projects planned for several of the B Street blocks. Also, we show Metropolitan Apartments. That's one of our earlier local developments, which is located across the street from the subject property. Again, I speak for the team in saying we're very pleased to be with you tonight. And with that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Alan Jones with Jones Architecture, who will discuss the project design in greater detail. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. Alan Jones, Jones Architecture. Not sure the clickers. Can you click for me? Here's a map taken directly from the 2040 general plan. The project site is located with the leader with the blue dot. As you will see, it's within the half-mile radius of the downtown Caltrain station. It's in the zone that is blue, which, as Liz mentioned, is the mixed-use medium 2 zone. Can you go to the next slide? This map shows the overlap of the downtown plan area with the blue. I'm shown in pink, and then the blue outline is the Vision of Gateway outline. The project is located with the red area. The interesting thing about the overlap of the two zones is that both of the zones require the use of a Mediterranean architecture style. That's a style that we fully embraced for the project. Also just wanted to note the proximity to downtown and the proximity to both Caltrain and the circulation patterns with shown in yellow. You go to the next one. As was mentioned by staff, this is the view from 3rd and Delaware. The project, the design team has fully embraced the ODS with the goals of maintaining San Mateo's architectural character. The building is an 8-story building, 128 units. There are 73 parking stalls located fully within the building. This corner view shows the corner plaza that opens up to the residential lobby. To the left of that are the residential townhome units that open up to the street. On the right, on 3rd, are the parking garage openings that are fully concealing the vehicles. Above that are terraces that the amenity spaces and units open up to. The massing of the building has been modulated into 3-part fronts on both of these facades. The cornice lines are varied, and a mixture of materials on the upper level really helps break down the mass. Go to the next. This is a vignette of the townhouse units, showing the clean, contemporary interpretation of the Mediterranean style. The upper levels of the building are stucco with bronze colored windows, decorative railings. You can see the 3rd-story cover, which is like exposed framing over top of units that open onto the terraces. Then the first 2 levels of the building are articulated with a white brick to kind of raise the character in the pedestrian realm. But you can see the gridded windows, the balconies that are inset on the 2nd story, the ground story stoops that are recessed within the building, and then the layered landscaping. Go to the next. Specifically, the project is required to comply with 7 out of 13 ODS architectural standards. We have designed the project to meet at least 8 of those, if not more. But the first one are multi-level roofs. So with the articulation of the cornices that vary at the top of the building, we feel like we're meeting that. The asymmetrical massing with the way that it's articulated with different color cladding at the top of the building is meeting that. There are arches shown at the lobby, multi-pane windows at the townhouse units. We've incorporated decorative tile at the corner plaza at the lobby. And then ornamental surrounds are included at the balconies at the upper level, and then deep recessed openings that I'll show you in further slides. A site plan that shows the corner plaza at the corner of 3rd and Delaware, where the lobby opens up to. The paving will be rich, red colored paving that is consistent with the crosswalk standards. You can see the new street trees that staff mentioned. And then there is a landscape buffer that fully surrounds the property. So all of the units kind of open up to a kind of buffered landscape zone. If you go to the next. And then a zoomed in view of the lobby showing the arches with the decorative tile and the 3 bays or 4 bays of glazing that opens into the lobby. And then you can see the townhouse units to the left with the terraces above. If you can go to the next. And then a zoomed in vignette that shows the architectural character along 3rd. You can see the brick detailing around the openings, the deep openings, decorative railing, the cover over the balconies, the 3rd-story terrace with a warm wood-like roof structure, landscaping that's buffering the sidewalk from the building and the raised planters. Overall composition that we feel has really enhanced the pedestrian realm. Go to the next. So with that, we have a lot of plans and specific items in the appendix that I can come back to answer questions, but I'm going to leave it here for now. If you can go to the next slide and leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we will have public comment on this item. Members of the public will be given 2 to 3 minutes to speak, depending on the number of speakers. The applicant may also be given 5 minutes at the end to respond to the public comments. Any members of the public wishing to speak on this item, please turn in your yellow speaker slips now or raise your hand if participating over Zoom.
Through the chair, we have 2 in-person public commenters. We will start with Lori Watanuki and to follow David Light.
With 2 total commenters, it should be 3 minutes per commenter.
I will set the timer to 3 minutes. Once you see the timer start before you, you could go ahead and speak.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Patel and members of Planning Commission. My name is Lori Watanuki, and I live in the Central neighborhood. This Spanish Revival architecture does blend well into our neighborhood, and we do like the distinct curved arches, the open balconies, and the bronze metal decorative treatments. Although there are fewer trips compared to the previous commercial strip mall, there will be cumulative traffic impacts with the 16 additional projects in the downtown. These projects include 477 9th, the Kiku Affordable Housing Project, and the Public Garage, the Block 20 and 21, the Fremont Terrace and the Gateway Terrace. There are the 2 Verkada buildings, the Nazareth Residential Project, the Drager's Mixed Use, the Bespoke Project with the Alta Senior Housing, the First and B Office Project, and the 1 East 4th Avenue Project, and the 180 East Aaron Brothers Project, which is the office and retail project on Ellsworth. We would like to see a cumulative traffic study to include these proposed projects. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you. My name is David Light. Thank you, Chair Patel and Planning Commission. My name is David Light. I live on Fremont Street in the Central neighborhood, very close to this project. I really do like this final version with especially the Mediterranean Spanish Revival architecture and the fact that there's going to be 20 affordable units with the project. However, I continue to be very concerned with the safety of pedestrians and bicyclists in the central neighborhood with all the cumulative traffic from this project and other downtown projects. And I'm just requesting, or I wonder if Prometheus could provide funding to spend on speed humps for traffic mitigation and green pedestrian streetlights as part of a community benefit for this project. And these would greatly help improve pedestrian and bike safety in the central neighborhood. Fremont already has speed humps, and they really do help mitigate the traffic. So I think we need them on more streets in the central neighborhood. Anyway, thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you for your comment.
Through the chair, we have one public commenter via Zoom.
Okay, go ahead.
Rob, you could go ahead and unmute yourself. One second.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect, sorry. Thank you so much for your time. I did want to just bring up, as it's been shown in some of the picture, 2 lots, one across the street, have already been torn down for development and have been stalled. It seems ridiculous to approve this, especially since there isn't enough parking for these units. With the, I believe, the Kiki building that was built nearby, they said, oh, it's below, it's low income, so they won't have as much cars. Yet every time I walk by that building, there are cars double parked out front, and it's just not enough. With these being a lot of studios, 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, to assume less than 1 car per unit is just not realistic. There's no grocery store downtown. Everyone has cars, whether there's public transportation nearby. So I really think it is not an appropriate approval to have this dense of housing downtown when there's already so many empty lots that could be used. So I don't think this will add anything to our neighborhood. It'll take away a thriving shopping center that we have now that already provides a lot of value. So that's my 2 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Rob.
Through the chair, we do have one more in-person public commenter. I understand we haven't closed it yet. If we accept him to speak.
Yes, let's go ahead and accept the final comment, and this will be the final comment.
Hello, everybody. My name is Daniel Valverde, and I'm going to let you all know off the rip, I actually live in Sacramento. But my family does live here in San Mateo, in the Shoreview neighborhood specifically. I'm actually taking a flight tomorrow to SFO, out to Mexico to visit my mom. However, for this project, I think it's really great. More housing, more needed in downtown, specifically by the train station. However, what I'm hoping that the Planning Commission recommends is to add more low-income units to it. 15% is great. However, I think going maybe 20 would probably be ideal. That way we could serve a lot more low-income folks who work in our downtown. And also, it's desperately needed to meet the RENA numbers, right? So let's do our best. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And with that, we'll go ahead and close the public comment for this item. Would the applicant like 5 minutes to respond to any of the public comments?
Good evening. Jonathan Stone with Prometheus, just to provide a little bit of response on some of what we heard. With regards to the traffic concerns in the area, we'd be happy to get a better understanding of what those might be relative to the comments that were made. We're familiar with those comments that have been made, but I think given where we currently sit, understanding that context, we'd be happy to have that conversation as some of the next follow-up steps. With regards to parking, in the project. So again, 2097 requires no parking. We are providing parking, 73 units, which is at about a 0.64 ratio. The early iteration of this project had roughly 45 spaces, and we've since increased that from 45 or roughly 45 to 73. So a significant increase to those numbers. We have a great deal of data within our portfolio regarding parking ratios and usability of projects in proximity to transit. Many of those, or most of those, are right at a 0.5 ratio. So the 0.64 that we're providing, we feel very comfortable with, which is why we've readjusted the plans to do so. And I think the affordability level is significant relative to the provisions of state density bonus law that are applicable and allowed within the city and state context. So with that, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next I will pass it to my fellow commissioners for any clarifying questions. Who would like to go first? Sorry.
Through the chair, would you mind closing the public hearing?
Oh, yes, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. Public comment. Oh, sorry, I thought I did that after the last commenter. Yes, public comment is closed. Who would like to go first?
I can
All
go
right,
first.
Commissioner Williams.
Okay. I always have questions, as you know, just for the sake of making sure, just because I dive into the details and like to make sure I understand everything. So I do want to start by just saying thank you to staff for the presentation. Super clear and very complete. I really appreciate that. And thanks to the applicants for highlighting the design. Much appreciated. And I also wanted to note that I did meet with the applicants and they provided a brief overview of the project to me recently. I was getting this mixed up with this site, which I think has been talked about in the past. But anyway, I was, really pleased with the project. I guess it's not comment time, but let me see what my questions were. A lot of them were actually answered over the course of the presentations. Okay, I had a couple questions. It's an 8-story, I guess that makes it a mid-rise building. So what is the structural design of the project? Like generally, I mean, in big picture.
In terms of the construction type,
Yeah.
well, it's a type 3 over a type 1, so it's a wood frame building over a podium.
Okay. I was wondering about it. So it's over the podium.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess that's probably in the documents. I did see that. So, I mean, I think I can skip a lot of my questions probably. One of the questions I had was about the windows. I know that, one of the 8 items was that you have deep recessed openings, and that applies to some of them, but then there's a whole lot of other windows on the building that I don't know what that recess is. Are those also recessed to any degree, hopefully?
They are. So the deep recessed openings, I think, break that up into several sections. I think that the deepest of the openings are at the ground level and the second level with the kind of the colonnade and the arches. Then there are the townhome units, which have very deep openings. I would say the next category of openings are the way that the surrounds are treated at the recessed balconies, where those are also a very kind of deep, thickened jamb. And then if I remember correctly, the way that the residential windows are designed in the building, it's a 2x6 wall where the windows are set in on a 2x4 buck that provides additional depth at the window openings.
So there'll be a couple of inches or something?
Correct.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you. I just had a note to myself to look for it, and I didn't go back and look for it. I noted that there's a horizontal separation, or at least I think it was noted on the cover sheet, and then I didn't really go back. Is that because of the length of the building across Third, or I mean, that's typically for fire exiting, right?
I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. Are you are you talking about fire compartment areas on the upper levels of the building, or?
I noted that I made a note to myself that it was noted on the cover sheet of the drawings. It's probably just me diving into
I think
words about
that sounds like it may have been referring to the fire compartments in the upper level of the building, where the building has several fire compartments that are designed that closed down in event of a fire. That
Okay.
sounds like what you're referring to.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, I can go back and look at that, but I'm sure it will be fully vetted during the building permit process. So. I guess the other thing I would say is, and during the staff presentation, you mentioned that, I think this is for staff, you mentioned that you would go back to the page about setbacks and, what was the other terminology besides setbacks? It was a different, anyway. And I'm just wondering if you could just like briefly walk us through that to make sure it's clear. I mean, those are waivers, right? So,
Yeah, through the chair. I don't know if we can pull the presentation back up, Oliva. There we go. So
oh yeah, that was the page.
yeah,
you
this
mentioned that on.
this is
Setbacks.
summarizing some of the development standards. So here we're looking at setbacks and step backs.
And sorry, just before you get started, I didn't know the term step backs. So maybe you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the setbacks refer to the distance from the property line to the face of the building. And then a step back is an additional setback required usually for upper stories above the ground floor. So in this case, the setbacks and step backs are actually established through the gateway sub area of the downtown area plan. So that's in that minimum required column. The setbacks are listed in blue. So it requires a front setback between 15 and 20 feet. Same thing on the left and right sides. And then there's no rear setback established. And then the step backs are in addition to that setback. The portion of the building over 30 feet would require an additional 8 feet step back at the front, and same thing above 25 feet at the left and right side. This project does request a waiver to the setbacks and step back, so it's proposing a front setback of around 3 feet, a left side setback of 9 feet, right side setback around 2.5 feet, and a rear setback around 2.5 feet. So it does not meet those setbacks and step backs of the gateway plan, and that's addressed through a waiver.
Okay, thank you. Those are all the questions I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams.
Can I ask just a quick follow-up
Yes.
question on it? What's the front of the building for these purposes?
The front for this one is 3rd Avenue.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Bush, do you have any questions?
I opted in there, I guess.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I have just a few questions. On the, we heard a public comment about, this is for the applicant, I guess, about the number of low-income units, and I think the applicant mentioned that it's in line with the density bonus law. I also imagine that, you know, there's like a careful tailoring of the number of low-income, moderate income, and I don't know what the, I guess, regular income or average and high income units to make something like this pencil. Is that right? It's like a very close tailoring of those questions on your end.
Yes. So there's a city requirement for affordable units, and there's the ability to use or apply the density bonus law, and that the law has been changing over the years. The current version of it, which is being applied here, is what's considered the stacking bonus or the double bonus. So this includes 15% very low in order to get a 50% bonus. And then that comes with, and I'm forgetting the state law that increased this or adjusted the density bonus law. But then if you have 15% very low, you can then use 15% moderate and gain another 50% bonus. So that's what we did here in order to achieve just frankly the greatest amount of housing, which seems to be in line with the goals of the general plan.
Great. Okay. Thank you. I meant to mention I did have an opportunity to meet with the applicant in advance of the meeting to get a brief overview as well. For the parking deck, the exit for the parking deck on, I believe it's Ellsworth. Eldorado, thank you. my understanding is the cars can make both a left-hand and a right-hand turn out of the deck. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so
they
do
can.
you, and sorry if you don't know the exact number, but do you know that like how many cars can fit on El Dorado if they've between 3rd Avenue and the exit of the parking deck?
There are, I believe, effectively 3 or 4 parking spaces at that length. Another measurement that you could use would be a truck that would be loading, a delivery truck, because this is a loading area, along with a garbage truck. So this is also the garbage or the waste collection staging area. We have an exhibit on that as well, if that helps visualize it. But there are several, and Scott, maybe you know, 4. There's 4 parking space length there.
Okay, that's helpful. Thanks.
Okay.
We heard a couple of comments about traffic, and one concern I had was about cars. You know, let's say it's 73 cars, some number of cars all trying to exit at the same time from the deck, turning left to get to 3rd Avenue to get to wherever. So I guess I was curious whether there was any consideration, or if this is even the stage at which this type of thing is considered, for just having that be a right-hand turn exit out of the parking deck such that they can't turn left onto El Dorado.
I'll defer to Public Works, but the garage entry analysis was studied at great length on this project. The early iteration of the garage had an entry point on Delaware. And there's specific code language within the city's codes that say that cannot be done. So it was moved to El Dorado. One version also had 2 garage entries. This was what has been determined
The
per city
choice. Okay.
Yes, per code and for numerous reasons. But I would defer to city staff to.
Yeah,
confirm
through
that
the chair,
guidance.
I can also, I believe we have public works staff available if there's more technical questions, but this project was reviewed, provided trip generation data to evaluate whether further traffic study would be required. And based on the existing land use and the proposed land use, it actually would generate a net negative number of trips, so a reduction in trips during peak hours. So for that reason, it wasn't required to go through a more detailed local traffic analysis. And it's assumed that this driveway would be adequate to serve the peak hour trips of the site.
Got it. So that incorporates an understanding of the like traffic flows at the time, or just the vehicle numbers.
Yeah, so the trip generation data just looks at the vehicle numbers, not the specific like movements of the traffic.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. I think those were the questions that I had.
Commissioner Clafter, you're next.
Thank you. Through the chair. Good evening. I should also say up front that I also met with the project applicant recently to discuss the project. I had a question about, I thought it would be useful to have the applicant discuss how the parking was determined, but that question was answered in their response a little while ago. I also thought it would be interesting if the applicant could talk about how they came up with the mix of units, the different sizes, different numbers of 1, 2, 3 bedrooms.
Sure. Thank you. We study this on a project-specific level, given context and proximity to other buildings we may or may not manage or own. In this context, across the street is the Metropolitan Apartments. Those are largely larger units built roughly 20 years ago. So 3 and 2 bedroom units make up the majority of that project. There are very few, if any, 1 bedrooms and no studios in that project. So studios and 1 bedrooms, which make up a decent percentage of the proposed project here, we know that there's a market need for, given our familiarity with the market. And so that's partly why you're seeing the numbers as to what they are here. Form and volume and FAR also factor into that, but that's one of the driving factors.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have one more question really for staff. I think this is going to be, I believe this is the first of several SB 330 projects and other projects that we're going to be seeing this year. And I think it would be useful. I was looking at the agenda report, and I think it would be useful to get a little more clarification, just for not just for ourselves, but just for everybody watching, about the in particular Housing Accountability Act. So I noticed the language in the agenda report where it says that the HAA limits a local agency's ability to deny, reduce the density of, or render housing development projects infeasible if objective standards are met. And I was just thought it might be useful if we could get some additional clarification on those limitations.
Sure, yeah, through the chair, I can provide a bit more context. So the Housing Accountability Act, as you stated, it limits the local agency's ability to deny a housing project. So I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong over here, staff, that this is limited to essentially the housing project could only be denied if there are specific findings made related to public health and safety. So it can't be denied over design or things along those lines. It would need to be meeting specific rigorous standards for denial.
Great, thank you. I think those are all my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Clafter. I do not have any additional questions that have not already been asked. Wait, actually, I changed my mind. I have one question that came up when we were going through the project designs. It looked like there was something that looks like a garage entrance on both El Dorado and Delaware from the facade, but I know that the ramp is only on El Dorado. So I was wondering if the applicant could explain what the really large bays are on Delaware. The bay doors, specifically, yeah.
The only entrance to the garage is on El Dorado. The openings on Delaware are for transformers, electrical rooms, and then the larger openings that are in the second story are like simulated window openings that provide natural light and ventilation into the second story parking garage.
Okay, thank you. Right, I do not have any additional questions. Does anyone else have any additional questions?
Commissioner Patel, would you like to disclose any meetings with the applicant?
Oh, yes. Thank you. I also met with the applicant and got an overview of the design. Yes, thank you so much. So that brings us to discussion. Shall we go in the same order? Commissioner Williams, do you have any comments?
Sure, I can start. Yeah, let's see. I'll start by saying that I really like the project. I think that it meets the objective design standards in many ways, not in all ways, but I think it's a good use for the site. I know we had a comment about this, but it currently has just a strip mall and a parking lot on it, and it may be well used at times, but it's not really the best use of this site. So you know, I mean, it's sort of the entry. It is the gateway. It's the entry to our city. And, you know, asphalt parking lots, although they serve a purpose to get in and out of the shops there, I think that this is a great use for the site. And hopefully we can, you know, we can see those businesses relocate in other places. So nearby, as we have in other projects. So I really like the white bricks and the arches, the details like the gates and the balconies, and I'm glad to hear that the bulk of the rest of the windows will have an approximately 2-inch recess from the face of the stucco, because I do think that's important and that it'll make a big difference, and I hope it doesn't get value engineered out or anything like that, because that just gives a sense of, you know, texture and, you know, I think at the street level and the lower levels, there's a lot of depth to the openings, but that large mass that we're going to see, if we can get that texture and those shadows from a little bit of recess, it'll make a big difference. I like the white and the brown or the bronze as opposed to black that we see so much of. I actually, speaking of color, I guess I'd like to point out that I like the tile at the entry, but it is an opportunity for maybe a little bit of color there. And I would suggest maybe taking a look at some either colorful or artful tile, or maybe something that has a little bit more depth to it than what we're seeing so far. I think that there's an opportunity for a little bit of deeper color there. My two cents on that would draw a little attention to the entry as well. Let's see what else. I do appreciate the parking a lot. I think that, I agree with the comments that people are going to have cars and it's going to affect the nearby neighborhoods, at least this building and all the other buildings. But, you know, you don't have to provide any parking. So I really appreciate that there is as much parking as there is. Not everybody in this building is going to be taking the train or riding a bike. So I think that goes a long ways to help balance that out. Yeah, I mean, I think those are my comments. Basically, I like the project. I think it will be a great addition to this kind of gateway to our city. I think the Spanish Mediterranean sort of style is a really nice direction, and something that I think people have been kind of wanting to see, a little bit of traditional look on downtown buildings. So yeah, so thank you. I look forward to seeing it move forward.
Thank you. Commissioner Bush, do you want to go next?
Sure. I echo a lot of Commissioner Williams's comments. I think the project seems like a good fit. I think it's going to look very nice with the metropolitan apartments there. It seems like a good kind of sort of segue into downtown. It might stand out a bit until some of the other development around there is kind of built up, but it's nice to have that connection with the rest of the gateway down the street. I appreciate the applicant's offer to kind of think about how to evaluate traffic. I feel like that was the main concern, and appreciate the willingness to kind of think about that and dive into that aspect. And just because I don't know where else to say this, I'll just say maybe I would suggest whoever, the city or the applicant, think about a right-hand only turn out of the parking deck with the flow of traffic there. I think it could make sense for reasons I won't describe here, but something worth thinking about with some of the one-way streets there. I think it could be helpful to the folks who live there and to the folks who live in the neighborhood. But other than that, I'm in support.
Commissioner Klafter.
Yes, I again would echo many of the comments we just heard from my fellow commissioners. I like this project. I like the design. I think it's very strong. There was some discussion about the podium, the base of the brick. I do think that one thing that can sometimes be difficult to come across in renderings is, you know, the texture of brick. The small shadows that are created by the lines of the bricks, and I think that you know, when that finally goes up and we can see the brick and everything, I think that'll, you know, have a little bit more of a impression. Like, you know, we're looking at this rendering right now on the screen, and it just looks kind of washed out. I don't think that's how it'll come across in person. So I appreciate that the applicant, you know, went a little above and beyond with all of the different elements of the Mediterranean or Spanish revival style. I think what Commissioner Williams said about the tile element down there being an opportunity for color, I immediately thought about the fact that at the other end of Third, the other sort of, this is the gateway from one direction, and then at the other end of Third, we have the Bank of America with that fantastic, very colorful mosaic mural there. It might be interesting to have a tile, interesting tile project in there that kind of bookends downtown, though I know that the applicant has in the past, I believe with the Brickline project, spent a lot of time and attention on the getting the tile detail on the entrance there just right, and so I'm confident that they'll do something interesting there. So that I think those are my comments. I think this will be a very nice addition to the neighborhood.
Thank you. I don't have much to add beyond what my fellow commissioners said. I think that this is a great project for this location. It is, in my opinion, the highest and best use of the site. I really appreciate that the maximum amount of housing possible on the site is provided. And I think the design is really lovely. If I'm not mistaken, this is the first project to come to us specifically after we passed the objective design standards and following the objective design standards. And it's quite exciting to see that come to fruition as someone who worked on those standards. So I think those are all of the comments for me. It's a beautiful project, and I'm excited to see it come to life. If there are no further comments from my fellow commissioners, going once, going twice, Commissioner Williams.
I just actually wanted to add that I do agree with a comment that was made about, other projects in the area that have been, demolition's been done and, and then I know we've gone through difficult, financial times over the last few years, but I meant to ask earlier, maybe I don't need to backtrack, but just, I'm hoping that, the project will move forward without being stalled after demolition. And I guess that's a question of typically there's a demo permit issued, and then, sorry, I guess this should have been a question early on. I guess that's my comment. I'm hoping that the demo permit won't be issued until it's, more of a assured project. Thank you.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion? Yes. And I know we have modified language in the conditions of approval that we need to call out as well.
Yeah, through the chair, just wanted to see if the commission wanted to adjust the resolution to allow for the flexibility that was brought up by Commissioner Williams and Commissioner Bush. I think Public Works has said that they've already addressed the right turn lane, so I'm not sure if that's necessary flexibility, but from Commissioner Williams' suggestion, to provide the option to provide that change, it's not a requirement that I think the city is requiring. I don't think the commission is not requiring that change. It's really more the flexibility to provide that change.
Which change? Sorry.
About the entry in the tile that Commissioner Williams suggested. So just a resolution that would allow for the applicant to have that flexibility to make that change.
I don't really need that to be, those were just my comments to the design and applicant team. I don't feel like it needs to be part of the motion.
Okay. I guess maybe let me add a question to that, which is, what is the degree to which that the selection of that tile is a material that is being approved as part of this planning application? And I didn't ask about this earlier, but I know we have some other projects that have used the tile work as an opportunity to meet the public art requirement. And so I guess I sort of assumed that the tile design itself is not finalized yet, and that would come more in the permitting phase. But are we locking in that material selection now with the approval of this planning application?
I think that's something that the applicant may want to address.
Just to clarify, the language being discussed would allow for flexibility to consider this in the future without having to come back and amend an approved application?
Correct.
Yeah, and I guess my question is for staff, which is, would they have to come back in the future if they change the tile material from what is listed in the planning application today?
Yeah, so through the chair, there is a condition of approval that requires conformance with the approved planning application, and it does list materials. However, there is language in our zoning code that does allow for modifications minor modifications or modifications that are substantially conforming. So I think that would be reviewed
At staff level.
at a staff level, and if it's substantially conforming and not a huge departure, would likely be something that could be swapped out at the building permit stage.
So let me pose that question to the applicant. Would you prefer more flexible language in the resolution?
I think it would be great to give staff the power to work with us to determine, like, I think having a little flexibility in the tile would be great.
Okay. So I think what I'm hearing is we would like to add some language to the resolution to provide flexibility in the selection of the tile. So whoever's going to make the motion.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And to the extent I unmuted to make the motion, I shall include it. However,
Can we circle back to the right-hand turn thing? Are you saying, what were you saying about Public Works having already considered it, or?
Looks like Public Works have already considered it, but perhaps Selena can provide more information on that.
Yeah, I can provide more information. I'm Selena with Public Works. We initially, I think during the first submittal, we did receive a design that had driveways on Delaware and El Dorado, but I believe the driveway proposed on Delaware was adjacent to the neighboring property's driveway, so we requested that they remove it due to pedestrian safety concerns, because we didn't want pedestrians needing to, it just didn't seem as safe having the two driveways right next to each other. This is on the Delaware side with the gas station.
yeah, thank you. I think my suggestion was they consider or have the opportunity to consider without us imposing this requirement on them, that the opportunity for, if it's even at your level or if it's at the city level, about making that right-hand only turn.
Just for clarification purposes, we're referring to on El Dorado.
Correct. Out of the proposed deck onto El Dorado.
Sure. The Delaware
Doesn't
removal
exist. Yes.
had to do with the level or the designation of the roadway.
Right.
As an arterial versus a local road. And so
Right.
El Dorado's local, we had to move it over there. Right versus left, according to Public Works, we believe it to be close enough to middle of the block, given the 4 parking spaces and loading that's there, to allow for a left-right. But we're certainly happy to revisit that. It seems as though greatest flexibility would be the best thing going into the future. But we're happy to have an ongoing conversation with Public Works.
That's all.
Yeah, that's definitely something. Sorry. That's definitely something we can work with Jonathan on.
Great. My suggestion was just, if nobody had thought about it, maybe someone could think about it and just make a informed decision not to do it.
Sure. We're happy to keep the conversation going.
Perfect. Okay. I don't think I need to include that in the.
If I could add to that, I do think that restricting the exits from that garage to right-hand turns only could complicate trips a bit if someone is heading west, having to take a right and then turn, basically go around the block.
Totally. Yeah. I guess I will articulate why I suggested it, which is that if you turn right onto El Dorado, then you're at 4th, which is a one-way street. So you can turn left much more easily onto 4th, and then you just go 1 block, turn left, turn left. If you turn left onto El Dorado out of the parking deck, then you're at 3rd, and that first lane of 3rd, once you turn left, is a left-hand only turn lane. So you have to go over 2 lanes to get into the middle of 3rd. And if you have a line of cars and there's all these people coming off 101, then you could imagine a world where there's backup. So it's just a thought I had I wanted to share.
Well thought
So
out.
I would like to move to.
Glad you thought that out so well.
Do I read the whole thing? Recommend what's on the screen here in addition to the additional flexibility suggested by Commissioner Williams for the tile.
I will second that.
Thank you. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Bush,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Chair Patel,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Clafter.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you. I will go ahead and close that item, and we will move on to item 2. Oh, yes. Actually, may we have a 5 minute? Let's do a 5-minute break and come back at, let's say 8:20? Okay. Oh, what? I have 8:15.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
2.
Item 2, 1650-1720 South Amphlett Boulevard, multifamily residential development, PA 2025-029.
Thank you. Again, we will start with a staff presentation, followed by the applicant presentation, and then public comments. Members of the public will be given 2 to 3 minutes to speak, depending on the number of speakers. The applicant may also be given 5 minutes at the end of public comment to respond. Once the public comment is closed, I may ask staff to respond to any of the public comments. The commission will ask clarifying questions, deliberate, and then render a decision. If a decision is made tonight, the decision of the Planning Commission can be appealed to the City Council within 10 calendar days. Okay, can we go ahead and start with the staff presentation, please?
Good evening, Chair Patel and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Simin Zakovan, Associate Planner and Staff Planner for item number 2 before you this evening. This is a public hearing for 1650-1720 South Amphlett Boulevard for multifamily residential development planning application 2025-029. Here is a quick overview of tonight's presentation. Beginning with the project history, the applicant submitted a preliminary application on December 20, 2024 under Senate Bill 330 or SB 330. Following the preliminary application, they held a neighborhood meeting in March 2025, and then they submitted a formal application in April 2025. The project is located at 1650 South Amphlett Boulevard, and it is shown here and outlined here in red. This map also shows the Hayward Park Caltrain station, and it is circled in yellow. The blue dashed line indicates that the project is partially located within half a mile of Caltrain station. The site is currently developed with 7 3-story office buildings and 1-story commercial building. It is bounded by South Amphlett Boulevard to the east, South Grant Street to the west, Leslie Creek to the north, and former Marriott Hotel property to the south. Surrounding land uses include single-family residences to the north and west, 101 freeway to the east, and commercial and office uses to the south. The site consists of 3 parcels, and it is about 17.5 acre. The general plan land use designation for the site is mixed use medium 1, and the site is zoned E2-1 for executive office. The site is also located within the rail corridor transit-oriented development plan. The project proposes to demo all existing buildings and redevelop the site with 256 for sale residential units. The unit mix includes 64 detached single-family homes and 192 townhome-style condominiums. A total of 15% of the units, or 38 units, will be designated as affordable for moderate-income households. The unit mix for affordable homes are 9 single-family homes and 29 townhome units. So here is an overview of the site plan. The single-family homes are outlined here in yellow, and they're primarily located along South Grant Street. The townhomes are outlined here in orange, and they're arranged in 31 buildings. All proposed buildings are 3 stories in height, and the project proposes to subdivide the site to create 8 new parcels plus individual lots for each single-family homes. The townhome units will also be subdivided for condominium purposes. Open space amenities include 2 dog parks on each side of the site and 1 centrally located park, which is about 0.4 acre. Additional landscape areas are provided throughout the site, and in regards to trees, the applicant is proposing to remove 169 trees. 49 of them are heritage trees or protected trees, and the project includes 620 new trees. The project includes 2 primarily vehicular access along South Grant Street with additional access points on Amphlett Boulevard serving the townhome units. In regards to parking, each unit or house will be designated a 2-car garage with additional 55 parking spaces provided for visitors on site. Also, the project will provide public infrastructure improvements on both South Grant Street and Amphlett Boulevard, which will result in additional on-street parking. The following entitlements and permits are required for the project: site plan and architectural review, site development planning application, and vesting tentative map. So this was an overview of the project. Next, I'll dive into analysis of the various code and policies applicable to the project. This includes both local policies as well as state laws. Beginning with the general plan, the project was reviewed under its land use designation, mixed use medium 1, and zoning, which is executive office. The land use designation allows a maximum residential density of 50 dwelling units per acre. The project provides approximately 17.6 dwelling units per acre, which is within the allowable density range per the general plan. It is important to note that the city adopted minimum density requirements for certain land use designation after the project submitted a preliminary application. However, the project is vested under the code and policies in effect at the time of the preliminary application. Therefore, those minimum densities are not applicable to this project. The project complies with all applicable standards, with the exception of residential landscape buffer along the left side of the site and location of street trees. For both of these, the applicant is requesting waiver through the state density bonus law, which I will cover shortly. As shown in this table, the project meets all other development standards and in most cases exceeds the minimum requirement. The project is using the provision of state density bonus law with the 15% units for moderate income category. The project is eligible for 10% density increase, 1 concession, and unlimited waivers from development standards. Since the proposed density is below the maximum density allowed by the general plan, the applicant is not asking to increase the density of the site, nor they're asking for concession, but they're asking for several waivers from development standards and objective design standards. Waivers requested for this project includes reducing the landscape buffer along the left side of the site, as I mentioned in the previous slide, as well as requesting waiver for the location of street trees. The applicant is proposing to plant the street trees within the private property rather than public right-of-way. And lastly, several waivers from objective design standards, which I will discuss under design review. Other housing laws that are applicable to the project are Housing Crisis Act, or Senate Bill 330. This freezes development standards and fee structure in effect at the time the preliminary application was submitted. Next is Housing Accountability Act, which limits a local agency's ability to deny or render housing development projects infeasible if objective design standards are met. And in this case, for this project, objective standards are met. Next is Assembly Bill 130, or AB 130. This is a new exemption from California Environmental Quality Act, which was introduced and became effective last year. The project is eligible for the CEQA exemption, and this bill also requires expedited review process and also sets deadlines for agencies on making a decision on housing projects. The decision deadline for this project is February 22nd, 2026. And lastly, AB 2097, which removes the minimum parking requirements for projects within half a mile of major transit stops. This project, even though it's within half a mile of major transit stop, the applicant is voluntarily providing parking that meets our zoning code requirement. The project falls under several other local plans. This includes Rail Corridor Transit-Oriented Development Plan. The project is within planning area of this plan and supports goals and policies of this plan. Next is Cities Below Market Rate Program, which aligns closely with the state density bonus law, and in accordance with this program, the applicant has provided 15% of the total units for moderate income. Next, the project is subject to city's objective design standard, which I will cover under design review. And lastly, the project includes public right-of-way improvements in accordance with the pedestrian master plan and bicycle master plan. So now we are moving to design review. The project was reviewed against the city's objective design standard for multifamily residential. The proposed architectural style is best characterized as contemporary. Mixed materials such as stucco, vertical and horizontal siding, and some traditional elements such as asphalt, shingle roofing, and brick and stone veneer are used. 2 color schemes or color palettes are provided for each building type, and colors incorporate both neutral tones as well as some accent colors such as green and red. All buildings are 3 stories in height and are classified as low-rise building under ODS. There are various waivers that the applicant is requesting from Objective Design Standard or ODS, but for the sake of timing, I will be just outlining the main ones, and a full list is provided in Attachment 1, Exhibit B. These images on this slide are single-family homes. All single-family homes along South Grant Street have a balcony and a porch facing the street. Single-family homes that are not facing the South Grant Street have a sunroom as their indoor-outdoor space. The single-family homes that are mostly complying with the ODS requirements in terms of massing bricks, roofline variation, and wall articulation. However, the applicant is requesting waiver from horizontal alignment and vertical alignment of the windows. Now we are looking at some townhomes, just to give you an idea on how these are oriented on the site plan. The elevations on top are with the garages are facing the internal roadways, and the elevations at the bottom with the pedestrian entrance are facing the paseos and walking paths. Here is an elevation for an 8-unit townhome. The building is designed with a flat and low sloped gable roof form. The top elevations are not facing the internal roadways, have wall articulation, roof line variation, and massing bricks in accordance with ODS. However, the bottom elevations that are facing that are not facing the internal roadways are lacking these architectural features, and the applicant is requesting waiver. Also, other waivers related to site planning standards are included in this application, and this includes the screening from transformers and utility rooms facing the right-of-way and Amphlett, which are outlined here in red. Looking at some renderings, here is a picture of the Central Park with amenities such as picnic tables, shade structure, and playground. Here is a rendering of townhomes with paseos and landscape between the 2 rows of buildings. And here is another view from South Grant Street. The project is screened out of vehicle miles traveled analysis requirement by required by the California Environmental Quality Act because the project is within half a mile of major transit stop. For compliance with the city's adopted transportation impact analysis policy, a traffic report was prepared by the applicant's consultant, and the report indicates that the project will result in net reduction of 1,700 daily trips. Due to the significant trip reduction, the report concluded that the proposed project will not result in adverse traffic impact or circulation issues. However, there are some sidewalk and crosswalk improvements recommended on the intersection of Betty Lane and South Grant Street as shown on this exhibit. Here is a list of impact fees that the application is subject to. It is important to note that these impact fees are exclusive of any credits that the applicant may get because of the existing building. The project is exempt from CEQA per Assembly Bill AB 130. As mentioned under state law section, this bill was introduced and became effective last year. Tribal consultation with Native American tribes is one of the requirements for this exemption, and the city conducted the consultation and one tribe participated in the consultation process. Conditions of approval have been built into the project to avoid any significant impact to the cultural resources. Another requirement under AB 130 is that the housing units within 500 of the freeway shall not have any balconies facing the freeway. And throughout the review process, these balconies were removed. The project had originally had some balconies facing the freeway. However, these balconies were removed or converted to sunrooms to be eligible for this CEQA exemption. With these changes, the project meets all other eligibility requirements for AB 130, and therefore it is exempt from CEQA. In regards to public comments, 25 neighbors attended the neighborhood meeting that the applicant held in March 2025. They made comments related to traffic, construction timeline, and ADA accessibility. For tonight's meeting, staff has completed all standard noticing procedures listed on this slide. At the time that the staff report was published, staff received 3 comments that were included in the agenda packet, and after the agenda was published, we received 2 additional comments that have been provided to the commissioners. Before concluding the presentation, wanted to note a modification that the staff is proposing to make on condition number 42 in response to the comment that we received today. Staff is proposing to make the following changes related to speed humps on Grant Street. The proposed condition will state that the existing speed humps will need to be replaced, and the type of the speed humps will be removed from this condition. With that, staff recommends that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving the site plan and architectural review, site development planning application, vesting tentative map for the construction of 256 multifamily residential units located at 1650 and 1720 South Amphlett Boulevard, and finding that the project is exempt from California Environmental Quality Act based on the findings for approval and subject to the conditions of approval with the recommended modifications. This concludes the staff's presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions that the commissioner has. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will go ahead and move on to the applicant's presentation.
Of the Planning Commission, my name is Andy Beck, and I'm very excited to be in front of you tonight to present the Bayshore Commons project. First, I'd like to thank staff for your efforts in guiding this project through the process, and they're never easy. So I appreciate the efforts that your team has put into it to get us to where we are today. All right. So I want to first start by introducing our team. You can't have a great project without a great team. So we've assembled a great team with tremendous local experience and expertise in for-sale residential development. Fair and Pierce, Jet Landscape, and Sage Consulting Engineers are all local engineers and designers that have been proven track record of designing amazing residential projects around the Bay Area. They are joining us today by Zoom. Dawn Group has 50 years of residential design experience, including recent projects in San Mateo. I'm joined tonight by Lori Fehlberg, who will tell you more about the design in a few minutes. The site is located near the intersection of Highway 101 and California 92 within half a mile of the Hayward Park Caltrain station. The surrounding uses include single-family residential and office. The proposed project completes the residential identity of this neighborhood and is respectful of the existing community context. The existing property consists of 8 buildings built in the 1970s on 14.5 acres. The office park has hosted numerous businesses over its history, but occupancy has been in steady decline since COVID. We appreciate the Planning Commission and City Council's efforts and the hard work over many years to implement the general plan. Therefore, we made sure that the design supports overarching goals of the general plan. First, at just under 18 units an acre, the project fits within the mixed-use medium zoning designation. Secondly, we wanted the project to align with the general plan's vision, including expanding housing options by building more ownership housing, including moderate income homes, enhancing transit-oriented housing by adding 256 new homes near Caltrain, and supporting local economy with homeowners to support local businesses. Overall, the project will consist of more than 250 single-family attached and detached homes. Since these will be ownership housing, our plan is to partner with a home builder to bring these homes to the market. With that, I'd like to hand it off to Lori to tell you more about the design.
Great, thank you, Andy. Lori Moffett-Fehlberg, Senior Vice President of Architecture with Dahlin. Thank you for having us tonight. As Andy was saying, this is a tremendous opportunity for this much acreage for us to do a new community that really enhances an existing surrounding single-family neighborhood. And so that's really where we brought our inspiration from. Looking at the fabric of the community, you can see in the community plan here, the 3 different colors give you an indication of the single-family detached along Grant that gives us those wonderful front doors, the balconies, all facing out into the community with the driveways off of the alleys behind. And then you come into our community, we've got that central green space right in the center. And then we have 2 different types of townhomes, kind of on a block-by-block patterning. And what we liked about the way this all laid out, it really builds upon that gridded neighborhood character across Grant and to the north of us. And so we felt really good about how this really starts to complement and fill out the neighborhood, if you will, considering right now it's a lot of asphalt and kind of big, old, functionally obsolete office buildings. So one other thing I want to point out is we do have our central core, our open space, our amenity space, and then the 2 dog parks on either end, gives people great access to those. And then inside with the paseos, we've got short loops of short loop walking, medium walking, longer walking, and then out into the neighborhood with that grid connectivity out to Grant. Do you have the clicker? Oh, there it is. You might say, why did you have 3 different types of homes here? The single family detached, 2 different kinds of townhomes. We wanted to provide a broad range of opportunities for people moving into this neighborhood. So the smaller townhomes go down to just over 1,400 square feet, and then we start working our way through a stratification of size that builds options for people moving in up to over 2,200 square feet for the single family detached. We felt this really gives us broad appeal, and it makes a really healthy neighborhood as well. So these are just a couple examples of the architectural character. These 2 images are of the single family detached. You can see we broke up the massing with the roof forms, various gables and shapes breaking up that eave line. They have the decks shown. Each of the units has a private deck, the front porch, and then the color blocking and changes of materials that gives you a really rich palette across the face of the building. And then these are the two types of towns. Really the same philosophy of breaking up that ridge line with the gables or the flat roof components. You can see the decks, the balconies, the front porches at each of the units that will give us a lot of variation as you start to combine these across the site. High quality materials, stucco, a couple different kinds of orientations of siding, and then, you know, the deck railings, the nice windows, all of that starts to build the community together. So we've been here all night listening, and obviously parking is of concern to folks. And so, as was noted earlier, each of these homes has a 2-car garage. We felt that was very important, not only for our residents, but for our community, for our neighborhood. In addition to those two-car garage spaces, within the site, we have an additional 55 guest parking spaces, and then another 21 spaces along Amphlett. We are doing some street improvements along Amphlett that actually creates parking where no parking is allowed today. It's red curbs on both sides. So we're actually bringing that up. So let's talk about the landscaping plan for a minute. As mentioned, this site's almost entirely paved or building. And we're very excited to be able to say, okay, we're going to bring in almost 6 acres of open space. 41% of the site is now going to be open space. We're adding 659 new trees, over 616 on site, and then the improvements we're proposing along Amphlett to help buffer that edge. And we're removing 3.8 acres of asphalt. So we think that's pretty important for the overall community, not just for our neighborhood here. So let's talk about some of the creative design solutions, because we are against 101. And one of the reasons we oriented the buildings on the site plan itself is to create a scenario where the streets, the vehicular access through the alleys, and then the pedestrian access in the paseos ran perpendicular to Amphlett, to 101. What that does is it pulls the main windows away from the ends of the buildings, but we also had the balconies. And so AB 130 has the 500-foot requirement that we don't have any open balconies within 500 feet. So we reached back into a little bit of a historic perspective, even though we're a fairly contemporary neighborhood. And we said, we don't want to lose that indoor-outdoor lifestyle. It's California. Let's have some indoor-outdoor lifestyle. So we're creating sunrooms. So essentially, we're taking the balconies and we're glassing them in. So you still get the articulation on the outside of the building. You still get the lifestyle for the residents. They're not part of the interior. They have an exterior feel, but they're glassed in like you might see in a really cold climate for winter. So we thought that was a very creative solution to our location and the AB 130 requirement. In addition, all those trees we're talking about adding, we're adding trees on the east side of Amphlett that helps really create a buffer for us as well. So that softens that edge. Right now it's pretty industrial. It's not a place you'd really want to spend any time, but we're pretty confident that it'll have a nice residential feel to it when we get done with that street.
Let's talk a little bit more about affordable housing. As we've talked about before, 15% of the homes will be deed restricted for moderate income families. That complies with the city's affordable housing guidelines. We've worked closely with staff to distribute those homes throughout each phase, each building, and each floor plan within the site. The red dots indicate the locations of the moderate income homes in the site, and we've worked really hard to make sure that you try to limit the number in each building to 1 and maybe 2 due to numbers, but spread them out in units, middle units, single family, sunroom units, and balcony units, just to have a nice even spread throughout the community. To talk a little bit about Grant Street, this is a image of the existing street as it is today. During our community meeting, we heard a lot about from the neighbors about traffic and parking along Grant Street. The commercial nature of this street results in a dead zone on nights and weekends. This really encourages drivers to speed on their way through this area to somewhere else. This is a rendering of the new homes up against Grant Street. And as you can tell, bringing the homes closer to the street really creates a neighborhood feeling. In addition to adding these new homes to create that residential feel, the project also add traffic calming measures and crosswalk safety features, as staff had mentioned. This includes the flashing crosswalk signs, enhanced crosswalk striping, and even a bulb out that shortens the distance for pedestrians when crossing the street. We're also replacing the temporary speed humps with permanent speed humps, or as as Public Works determines through the design process. But really, the new homes closer to the street bring eyes to the street and encourages drivers to drive at a slower speed when driving through the neighborhood. Next, we have Amphlett. To be completely honest, in its current form, Amphlett is a huge waste of space. So you have 4 lanes of traffic to nowhere, and there's no parking on either side. So 90% of the time, this street looks exactly like this with no traffic. The barren landscape is uninviting and unappealing and does nothing for the community. Our project proposes a much more livable street with fresh landscaping on both sides of the street, narrower, more bike-friendly travel lanes, and parking, 21 brand new parking spaces. The staff report mentioned it, but just to recap on impact fees, this project will pay its fair share of impact fees to the city and the San Mateo school districts. The fees will total nearly $16 million for the community. Finally, I'd like to thank staff and the Planning Commission for considering our project, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will go ahead and move on to public comment for this item. Members of the public will be given 2 to 3 minutes to speak, depending on the number of speakers, and the applicant may also be given 5 minutes at the end to respond to those public comments. So any members of the public wishing to comment on this item should make sure and turn in their yellow speaker slips now to our clerk, or raise your hand if you are participating virtually over Zoom.
Through the chair, we have 1 person in person commenting, and we also have 2 online.
Okay, great. With 3 public commenters, that will be 3 minutes per public comment.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Mike Harris. I live on Guilford Avenue within the 1,000-foot or 1,000-foot range. Anyway, I've lived in San Mateo, Sunnybrae for 48 years. I have a request. And first of all, I want to appreciate the presentation that was made tonight. It answers a lot of my questions, but I still have my same complaint. So here it is. I request that as the process moves along, that we consider not having any egress from the project onto Grant Avenue. Here's my rationale. I've lived there for over 40 years, and there has been no egress onto Grant from the corporate center that currently exists there. Secondly, lovely speed bumps by the planning department. 10 miles an hour, by the way, unless you want to throw your groceries out the back deck. Anyway, that's nice, but it was designed to mitigate the speed and the traffic on Grant Avenue. My thought is that allowing access from this project onto Grant Avenue will increase traffic. I know they've made traffic studies, but they didn't talk to the neighbors. Anyway, not only that, and I appreciate the Amphlett Boulevard changes, but there is a 4-lane road coming out of the project, paralleling Highway 101, onto a 4-lane road on Concar into a traffic-controlled intersection. That is appropriate. It's like having a little freeway in and out of your project. And I would, again, ask for the consideration not to have the egress on and off the property onto Grant. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Mike.
Through the chair, we do have 2 additional public commenters via Zoom. We'll begin with Thomas Morgan. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Good evening. My name is Thomas Morgan. I also live in Sunnybray. I also do share concern about opening the driveways onto Grant. It just seems like it's a very busy street, and they put in some bike infrastructure there. So it just seems having those driveways, it just increases the danger, even with the consideration of the safety measures being taken. So I would really hope that those stay closed, because I think it would enhance the project and the neighborhood, and help them mesh together better. I think down the road there would be a lot of conflict with neighbors and the people who live here if they were to be opened. Second, I used to live in the apartments across from here, and there are a ton of workers who park their work trucks, so I didn't hear any consideration taken, but I would hope that as there is a demand for parking, that those people are given consideration, because it's a parking space to many, but it's their way of living, and we should honor that and respect that. But otherwise, looks like a good project. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas.
Next, we will have Kevin, and to follow, that will be Sarah and Jordan. Kevin, you can unmute yourself.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Hi, my name is Kevin O'Keefe. I'm a resident on Haddon Drive in the Sunnybray neighborhood in District 3, which is located directly across Leslie Creek from the northern property line of the proposed development. The existing office buildings don't feel as if they loom over Haddon Drive because they are well set back from the property line. They are only 2 stories high, and they are screened by multiple very large eucalyptus trees. In contrast, the proposed development will be much closer to the northern property line, will be 3 stories tall, and will eliminate all of the existing tall trees. My concern is that the new development will loom over our residences and block out a significant portion of our view of the sky. I'm hoping that staff and the applicant can discuss and perhaps revisit the specifics of the setbacks and the heights on the northern property line compared to the current office buildings, and also consider any other mitigations to address these concerns. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Kevin.
Sarah, you could go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Wonderful. Hi, this is Sarah Fields. I live directly across the street from this site on Grant. That's South Grant Street. I don't actually think we have a Grant Avenue. Nonetheless, I want to speak in favor of this project. I think it will create incredible connectivity between Grant Street, the rest of 19th Avenue Park, and across the street that's frankly been sort of a strange and disconnected area. Really since COVID and maybe even earlier, that business park has felt like a disconnected area, and this can really sort of connect, particularly with the Marriott closing. This has welcomed revenue back to the city. It also is a nice expansion of the neighborhood after sort of delays with Conquer Passage on the other side of the street. I think this is a tremendous project. It's a great opportunity to bring new residential development to the neighborhood, of which there has not been new in quite a long time. And I want to commend the developer in creating something that looks very promising, including the landscaping and the street improvements. One of my fellow commenters suggested that that parking is a challenge. There are some challenges with parking, but I think that having entrances and exits from South Grant from this new development will actually help with traffic calming, help create more awareness, not less. And frankly, we could use some of that in the neighborhood. So I welcome new development and new neighbors across the street.
Thank you for your comment, Sarah.
And lastly, we have Jordan Grimes. Jordan, you may unmute yourself.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Jordan Grimes. I'm a resident in 19th Avenue Park, so very close to the project. Just want to speak in support tonight. As you know, San Mateo has a significant housing shortage. The addition of a couple hundred new homes, while our shortage is much greater than that, will put or will help to put a dent in that number. I really do think, I know there are some concerns about the ingress and egress on Grant. I don't think it's a particularly large issue if we were talking, a couple thousand units. Where you had a couple thousand cars, it might be an issue. I'm not particularly worried about it, especially with the traffic calming that's gone in on the street recently. I understand the concerns around looming buildings. However, again, we're not talking about 8, 10, 12-story buildings here. We're talking about mid-rise. So I think it's a great project overall, and hope to see it built. Thanks so much.
Thank you for your comment, Jordan. And I believe that was our last public commenter, and so I will go ahead and close the public comment period. Would the applicant like 5 minutes to respond to any of the public comments?
Thank you. I just want to thank the commenters for their participation in the process, and we look forward to working with the Planning Commission and staff on moving forward with the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next step is to ask any clarifying questions that we may have. I keep picking on Commissioner Williams, so I'm going to look to my left this time. How about I pick on Commissioner Schunkel? Do you have any clarifying questions?
Through the chair, thank you. Yes, I do have a couple of clarifying questions. Have there been any significant changes to the project post the March 2025 meeting with the community?
I will say since March of 2025, the project has continued to evolve. One of the key components was the improvements along Amphlett. I don't believe that was in the original community presentation. The addition of the sunrooms. We worked closely with staff during after that meeting to develop the sunroom component of the project. We also have introduced most of those traffic and calming and improvement, pedestrian improvement concepts since that original staff meeting.
Got it. Thank you. And just in full transparency, I did also meet with the applicant, with Andy and the team in regards to this project. And I'm happy to hear that the Amphlett East sidewalk is going to be addressed, but that's not going to be a sidewalk. It's just, is that just vegetation only?
On the east side is closest to 101. It's going to be all landscape on that side.
Anything's better than what's there now, so that's much
absolutely
appreciated.
Thank you.
I believe we addressed this during our meeting, but just to reemphasize that park space will be publicly accessible for adjacent communities to come.
That's correct. The park space will be publicly accessible.
All right. And will there be any negative impacts to the parking right now as it stands on Grand? I know you're adding it on Amphlett, but on Grand, or will any be reduced on Grant?
I will say that the construction of the bulb outs for the crosswalks may have some impact, one or two spaces. That's really a question for the design team and for Public Works as we work through the final design of that. But what I will say is that all the residential parking for the project is accommodated on site with the two garage spaces per home and the 55 guest parking spaces. So although there may be some incremental loss of parking to improve the pedestrian experience, the project itself will have its sufficient share of parking.
All right, thank you. And then just one last question, just in regards to land use efficiency. I know the current breakdown is about 17 units per acre as it stands for the proposed project. Could you just elaborate a little bit on how you guys arrived there? Were there considerations during the design phase to maybe increase that number, and how did you guys arrive where the project stands now?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So in order to get to the unit mix that Lori presented, the 11 unit plans, the range of sizes, we did an in-depth market study of the for sale home product that's being constructed not only in San Mateo but around the area. We also interviewed a lot of the home builders that we hope to work with that are currently building not only in San Mateo but Foster City, and wanted to develop a competitive mix of for sale unit types that we think will meet the demands of the community.
Thank you. And I just want to say I also appreciate the fact that you guys took consideration of the inclusionary homes to be spread out throughout the project rather than just putting them on the ends or the middle or all on one block. I appreciate the inclusionary consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. How about Commissioner Bush next?
Sure. Thanks. We heard several comments about egress onto Grant. Could you just talk a little bit about, why the team thinks that's like an appropriate option rather than getting rid of that egress and having just an Amphlett egress?
Yeah, thank you. So we worked with Farron Pierce, the traffic engineer. Alex, I believe, is on the Zoom. He may weigh in, but Farron Pierce worked with Public Works to study ingress and egress. And we found that, the traffic patterns have a natural way of moving through. What I'd add to that is that having those driveways and those intersections in narrower streets, street parking and a tighter residential neighborhood actually improves the traffic patterns. It actually calms the traffic. Whereas if you have a setback building that's vacant, people tend to drive faster. And that's been my experience working with Fair and Pierce and other traffic engineers. We believe that having that intersection at Betty will actually improve the quality of traffic. And, based on Fair and Pierce's study, they found that the amount of traffic is less than what an office building would contribute.
And do you know if the finding about the amount of traffic, I know it's like the number of vehicles, but there was a comment about how the office building currently, they can only egress onto Amphlett. Mm-hmm. So in theory, that traffic is only over there and not on Grant. Do you know whether it was sort of analyzed the difference on Grant specifically in traffic?
I will say that Fair and Pierce is a lot smarter than I am on traffic. I would defer to the experts on that. Sure. But I will say that at one point those driveways were open, and the property had to make the decision to close those for sort of issues related to parking for our tenants. So
got it. Okay, thanks. For the intersection that's going to be with, I think it's Betty and Grant, that coming out of the complex. Are there? You showed the RFB, the flashing pedestrian signs. Are there stop signs there, or is it just a signal? Will you be adding stop signs on Grant, or it's just a signed crosswalk?
I don't believe Public Works has asked for a stop sign at this point.
I couldn't tell. I missed it in the picture.
I can chime in here. I'm Selena with Public Works. He's correct. There's a existing stop sign on Betty, but on Grant, we are not implementing new stop signs. We're just implementing the flashing beacon for pedestrian safety. Okay,
thank you so much. I just kind of ignorant. I'm curious if you have an answer to this question. What's the I saw that the request is to create multiple parcels across the development. What does that? What is the function of doing that?
So the first function is to address phasing. So as you know, there's several occupied buildings, and as we're managing the process of preparing this project for a new use, we're managing the tenants in the building already. So there's multiple tenants, and their leases all expire at different times. So we've been working with our property management team over the past 3 years to work with our tenants to help them in that transition. And part of that is to manage around those terminations. So as those leases come up, some of them are longer than others. So we intentionally parcel the building so that we can sell those to a home builder at different times.
Okay, I see. And does it have any impact on the end development side of how? Okay.
No.
Okay,
the other
thanks.
part of it is that home builders build and deliver homes in a very streamlined process where they build and sell homes in a pattern, and part of their process is to only build as many as they can sell in a period of time. And so that's the other reason for having those smaller parcels, so that we can work with the home builders to build the homes and deliver those parcels at a pace that they can manage.
Got it. So it might be that as the homes are becoming completed, having the multiple parcels allows them to actually sell them before other parts of the development are completed.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. This is a question for staff. There was a slide about impact fees, and you said, I may be misquoting you, but I don't think so, that it was exclusive of credits for the existing building. Could you just explain what that means?
Sure, yeah. Through the chair, the applicant will be receiving credits for impact fees because of the existing buildings. So because they have office buildings, that means like they've already contributed to some of the impact fees in the past. So those will be deducted from these impact fees.
Okay, got it. So it's kind of like the impact fee follows the land and zoning itself, and if there's already something there, a building there, that when that building was developed, they paid some amount of those fees appropriate for that type of building. And now when a new development comes in, they pay the difference in depending on that type of development. Is that right?
Correct, yes.
Okay. All right. Those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Klafter?
Thank you. Through the chair, questions. Listening to some of the public comments, and had this question about the speed humps there. What was the language proposed change based on the public comment? Is it proposing to simply to remove them or to?
Yeah, so we are proposing to remove the type of the speed humps and Grant Street. We are proposing to allow flexibility to determine these the type of the speed bumps at the time when the project comes for the building permit.
Okay, yeah, because I've definitely seen in other parts of town where the rubber speed humps were replaced with asphalt, where it allowed vehicles to continue at the 25 or the 15 mile per hour speed, whatever the street is in the residential area, and I assume that would be under consideration.
Yes, and I believe Selena with Public Works is also here if she want to add anything. But my understanding is that other type of speed humps we are considering other types like asphalt cushion, as you mentioned. So that's why we are removing the rubber speed bumps.
Okay, and then in terms of bulb outs, was there potentially a bulb out considered at the Concar and South Grant, or are they just sort of along the middle, the bulb outs which are going to be added on, like between Concar, like closer to Betty Lane? And
I believe the improvements are only for the intersection of Betty Lane and Grant Street, but Selena with Public Works is also here if she want to add anything.
Okay.
Or correct me if I'm wrong.
I can go ahead and add to this. So yeah, it's only proposed for this section. I believe your question was, are there going to be bulb outs closer to Concar?
Yes, potentially at Concar and South Grant.
I believe the project's it's a little further down.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, sorry, you're right. Beyond
there aren't any public improvements, at least for this project, for that intersection. And then just circling back to the rubber speed humps. So we did revise the language to give us the flexibility to decide during the building permit stage what kind of speed humps we will put in. We initially had rubber in the condition because the existing is rubber, but we're open to modifying this and using the asphalt speed humps that you were referring to earlier. There's pros and cons to both, so that's why we're leaving the language as the speed humps need to be replaced instead of specifying that they will be rubber.
Yes. And then I guess you have a question for the applicant about the property line along Leslie Creek there. Obviously, the preliminary, the planting plan shows trees along that edge there. I'm wondering if they could maybe elaborate a little bit more on the types of trees and what they intend for that, what they could envision for that edge of the property.
Thank you for that question. As far as the new trees, I'm not sure if Rebecca or Bruce are on from Jet Landscape. They'd be the ones to best speak to the species of trees that we propose there. But I will say that on that edge condition along the creek, that is a condition we're going to build that up So a lot of the existing trees there are gonna be in transition as we adjust the site for new construction.
Great. And then actually one more question. There was a comment about parking for trades during the different phases of construction, and would that be resolved by providing space within existing parking areas of the site during the phasing?
Yes, construction parking for
Yeah.
the project would be handled on site.
Yeah.
As far as workers parking on the street, presently it is a public street, and the project does not control
Certainly.
how that parking is managed.
I think those are all my questions. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I only have one clarifying question beyond what my fellow commissioners asked. I believe in the applicant presentation you noted there's a lot of questions about parking. And you've already noted that every unit will have 2 off-street parking spaces. But I believe in the applicant presentation you also noted that there's sections of South Grand Street right now that are red curbed, and you plan to add street parking where those current red curbs are located. Could you clarify that? And I don't know if you happen to know how many spaces that is that will be added in that section.
Sure. Just to clarify, we're referring to Amphlett.
Oh, you're referring to Amphlett.
Sure. And
okay.
Could you pull up the photo or the presentation? Happy to point that out. It's just back 1 or 2. How about one more? So this is the existing condition today.
Got it.
Both sides of this street are painted red for no parking. So if you move forward, this is the proposed condition that we've been working on with Public Works, which will have 2 narrow travel lanes and 21 new parallel parking stalls along the project side of Amphlett.
Okay, great. So that's 21 new stalls on Amphlett. Perfect.
Correct.
That was my only question. Any additional questions?
I have a few questions.
Yes. Oh, sorry. I
That's
skipped
okay.
right over you.
No
yes.
worries.
Please go.
Yeah, let's see. I did meet with the applicants also just to make note of that, and that they provided a brief overview of the project to me. One minor thing, well, I guess it's a staff question for my clarification. On page 174 of the PDF packet, there is a note that I think is supposed to say $1.7 million for each tree not planted. And first of all, I think there's a typo because there's extra numbers in there. And then I'm not clear if it's, can you explain to me, I don't have the page open, actually, I should open it to see what it actually says, but I know the numbers, there was an extra number in there. Can you please clarify the landscape in lieu fee and how that's used?
Sure, through the chair. So the landscaping lieu fee typically per each tree or each heritage tree that is removed, there is a land or there's a tree value that it is calculated. So each tree that will be removed, it could be replaced either by planting new tree or paying an in lieu fee. In this case, the applicant is subject to both. They're proposing to plant new trees and also paying an in lieu fee for each trees or portion of a trees that they're removing. I apologize for the typo, but I believe the estimated fee should be as the applicant also has on their slide.
Yeah.
It's 1 million.
It's total, right?
Yes. 1.7 million, sorry.
Yeah, okay. I seems to me that
It's not per trees.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
okay.
No, it's total, yes.
Yeah, and then it had like extra numbers as well, so I was unclear on all that. Okay, so the next question I have is there was a comment about the height of the buildings, and I kind of assume that the old commercial buildings that are there, even though they're two-story buildings, it's possible that they're taller than the new three-story residential or similar, close in height. Does anybody know that offhand, what the existing height difference will be?
Yeah, to clarify, the existing buildings are 3-story.
Oh, they are three-story.
Correct.
Okay. Somebody made the comment that they were two-story. So they are definitely as tall or taller than the new buildings will be. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Is a soils report required for this project?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. And then lastly, kind of a personal thing, is there a playground proposed, like an enclosed tot lot or anything, kind of a little enclosed area for a play structure?
We are proposing a play structure at the Central Green.
Okay.
It is not currently shown as enclosed.
Okay. I guess I didn't see it. I just saw the green, the open space.
Samin, we may have on our presentation
well, and I guess it's part of my comments, I guess, really, but one could fit probably in one of the two dog areas, if you had one dog area and one tot lot that was enclosed. Just a thought. So
yeah, the blue area in the presentation is the play area.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's it. I think everything else was answered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. I'm so used to calling on you first that I totally forgot. I meant to call on you last. Okay, so are there any other questions from my fellow commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Clafter.
I just wanted to add that I think I may have forgotten to mention during my initial questions that I also did have a meeting with the project applicant to discuss this prior to this meeting.
Me too.
And me. Thank you. All right, shall we move on to comments? Would you like to go first this time, Commissioner Williams?
Sure, I don't mind unless somebody else wants to, but I'll go ahead. I have a bunch of random notes here, but I think, thank you to the staff and to the applicants for the presentations, with the last one. So much good information for us. That's also in the packet, but very helpful discussion. I'll just say I really like the project. It's another great use of a site that's like way underutilized. I mean, like as the applicant, as one of the people said, massive amounts of asphalt and these, outdated office buildings. So I look forward to seeing this, vibrant new community. I think it works nice as the missing middle housing that we want to plan for as part of our general plan. And I will also say that this reminds me of the community where my daughter and son-in-law live in Southern California. And I go there now because I have a new grandson. Well, he's not new, he's almost 2, but I have a grandson. And that's why I asked about the playground, because it's so easy to walk from their place just down similar little kind of paseo to these choices of like kind of enclosed tot lots. And it's just such a nice little feature, which I probably wouldn't have thought of before. But so I would consider, losing a dog lot, a dog space. I have a dog too, so I, care about dogs, but I think, like a small toddler-sized lot might be kind of handy in this community, as well as, there's lots of spaces for walking your dog. But anyway, so I think that would be a little bit of everything. I think a dog space and a tot lot, and then the larger open space. I've been kind of looking at this to see, is there any way to get a bigger open space? Because in the renderings, I think sometimes, the renderings show that, it's not as huge of a park as we see in other parts of the city. So a lot of residents here and one central space that could be bigger in my mind. But without losing housing, I think that the way you've addressed the Amphlett landscaping, the paseos I really like. I'm not sure what you'd squeeze to get out a little bit more space in that central park area. But I think it's worth taking a look at. I'm glad to hear about the parking on Amphlett, because I do think, again, as a visitor to a similar community, if there's no visitor parking, you would end up walking quite a ways into one of the middle, or unit that's sort of in the middle of one of the runs. So having that parking on Amphlett is really important for visitors. Grandparents that are babysitting. Let's see, what else was I going to say? I think, kind of looking through the various waivers and the differences between the objective design standards, I think they've been met pretty well. There's so many specific things in the ODS that seem, that I think that, you've addressed each of them pretty well. Just as for instance, the window alignment thing. The window alignment maybe isn't exactly the way it's worded, but yet it's logical and intentional and makes sense to me. So from story to story on the 3-story buildings. Let's see. I felt like a couple of the elevations from the driveway alleys, those elevations seemed a little bit like they don't have the same amount of articulation. And so they're a little bit stark, I guess. And considering that they're 3 stories, I guess, I don't know. I wonder if there's another way to kind of, maybe not necessarily break them up, but to provide a little interest or something that makes those alleys not quite so stark. So something to think about. I guess those are my main comments. And again, generally, I think it's exciting. It's like a great community on what's now this, terrible stretch of Amphlett and a bunch of asphalt. So I look forward to seeing this project move forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Clafter.
Yeah, I echo many of Commissioner Williams' comments. I really appreciate, thank you for, the presentations. First of all, I really appreciate the attention that's going to be paid to Amphlett. When I did visit the site, that was the first thing I thought as I was driving in. I said, this 4-lane road, it seems entirely unnecessary, and I was very pleasantly surprised to learn that that was already in the works to improve that, add street parking, and I appreciated the solution with the sunrooms. I think that's a very clever approach to get some outdoor space for the units that are closer to the 101. The paseos, I just now taking a closer look again at the plan and noting that there's the kind of a walk all the way along Leslie Creek with a stop at the dog park, and of course the central park area there. Obviously, this part of town has a few smaller parks: Concord Park, Sunnybrae Park. I think are kind of within walking distance as well. But I think I could anticipate this being very useful to the larger neighborhood to have an additional play area and these walking paths accessible. So I think that could end up being a really nice amenity beyond just this development. In terms of the screening along Leslie Creek, there was that comment that was raised. I mean, there's obviously trees shown on the planting plan. And I know some of the homes have the front entrances face onto the creek. So, I imagine there'll be some trees and things there. I'd be curious, to kind of, I'm assuming that'll be shaded and things like that. So hopefully those trees will grow up. And along there, in terms of the other comment on the driveways, I would imagine that, people who are going to be living on the east side would probably, to exit are likely to go on to Amphlett still. And then people who are living closer to the South Grant side are likely to exit out onto South Grant. It won't necessarily be everybody exiting out onto South Grant, I would assume. Certainly that's how I would drive if I was closer to Amphlett. That'd be the fastest way out. So hopefully it presumably won't result in everybody going in one direction. I think that is all the comments I have for now. Yeah.
Thank you. How about Commissioner Schenkel?
Thank you. Through the chair, just like to also echo Commissioners Williams and Commissioner Clafter's comments. I think this is a good project. It's a much needed project. Saddened to hear that there's not going to be any pickleball courts incorporated there. But their neighbors are probably happy that there's not. So with that being said, I agree. It enhances the look, feel, and aesthetics of Grant and Amphlett. It's an overall positive to the community, I believe, and I like the project and looking forward to support it.
Thank you. Commissioner Bush?
Yep, I agree with everything that's been said, and I think to the extent it sounds like one of the main concerns is the egress onto Grant. It sounds like the developers work closely with city staff to come up with ways to mitigate any potential impacts, and in fact, that having that egress onto Grant might be better than not having it for the concerns that the commenters raised. So I'm definitely in support. It seems like a great project in a great spot.
Thank you. I'll go next. I have a couple of comments. Okay, wanted to note, as we already did, that I also met with the applicant and they gave me a preview of the design. So I will say that we have few very large sites in San Mateo, and there is a part of me that is a little bit disappointed to see this project come in as lower density housing. Under state density bonus law, it could have been over 1,400 units, and we're seeing 256. And when I think about our RENA target of 7,000 units, this was a huge opportunity site. And so that's a little bit disappointing, especially at the density of 17.7 units per acre. It's not meeting the 30 units per acre minimum density for mixed-use medium 1 zones located within a transit-oriented district. That all said, this project is protected by the Housing Accountability Act. It submitted an SB 330 pre-application prior to the creation of those minimum residential densities, and it conforms with all of our standards and regulations. So while it's disappointing, it is a compliant project. And I will say it is exciting to see some for sale units be built in the city. That's something that has not happened in a long time and something that we hear our community ask about a lot. And so to your point, Commissioner Williams, this is missing middle housing. And so it is great to get some missing middle housing. And I do think that as I believe it was Commissioner Clafter said, maybe it was Commissioner Schenkel, it definitely improves the look and feel of Amphlett and South Grant. It is currently, as everyone else has noted, an underutilized office park that is a sea of asphalt, and it's a little, if I may use the word sad, in that area. And I think the vibrancy that will be brought to that part of South Grant will be amazing. It's a beautiful project. So yeah, I'm excited to see this come to life. I will say that I'm also somewhat concerned about the proximity of this project to 101. I have long brought up the issue of air quality on the General Plan Subcommittee and on the Planning Commission. And, I was doing some counting during the meeting. There's 9 streets and 7 paseos that are going to have direct line of sight to the highway because there is no sound wall on this part of Amphlett. And so I have concerns about the outdoor front porches and the exposure to particulate matter. And I look at this beautiful park, and there's 2 streets and a paseo that are going to have direct line of sight to the highway from this park. So that worries me. But again, this project is compliant with all state laws and regulations, so I don't know that there's anything that we can really do about that. There are a lot of comments about the speed bumps. In general, I'm always a fan of flexibility, so I support the proposed changes to the conditions of approval that staff is proposing because I think it's better to decide at a future date what the right solution is rather than be prescriptive about a rubber speed bump. However, there was a couple of comments from the public that were to the effect of, man, these speed bumps are too good. They're really slowing people down. Yes, that is the point of a speed bump. My family regularly bikes past this development to Concar Park, which is my kids' favorite park, and to Trader Joe's. And I will tell you that bike ride has become so much more pleasant since those speed bumps went in, and cars do have to slow down to 15 miles an hour, which is at the speed that you are not likely to die if you are hit on a bike. So I will say that my one ask of the applicant and of staff is, when you decide what is the right solution, please do so with the safety of this bike boulevard, because that part of Grant is a bike boulevard in mind, and not with maximizing the speed of the cars that are going to be driving along that area. I'm also glad to hear that we're going to have increased number of parking spaces on Amphlett. I think that will provide some additional flexibility for the visitor parking. And I would say one suggestion I would make is to enclose the playground area of the park if there's not a fence around it already. It's hard to tell from these plans. I think almost every park, or every park that has every playground in San Mateo, not Central Park, but like Concar Park, the parks at Bay Meadows, which are a very similar development, like every playground, Sunnybrae, that's in the area has an enclosed fence. And it's really nice when your kids are toddler age. You don't have to worry about them running out into one of those streets. You know that they're going to stay pretty contained within the fence. So I would suggest that you consider enclosing the playground. And then I have a comment for Public Works, which is, I know that the property boundary, as we discussed, does not go all the way to Concar Drive. But given, I think, the potential to see increased pedestrian traffic to Concar Passage and the Trader Joe's and the 7-Eleven there, I would ask Public Works to consider making pedestrian improvements at that very large intersection around the time that this project comes online. I think that would make it much safer for the residents of this development who choose to walk the very short distance to Trader Joe's to grab a dozen eggs or a carton of milk. Those are all of my comments. Any comments from anyone else? No. Okay. Can we get the resolution language back? Or actually the approval language back on the screen? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to adopt a resolution approving the site plan and architectural review, SPAR site development planning application, investing tentative map for the construction of 256 multifamily residential units located at 1650 through 1720 South Amphlett Boulevard, and find that the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Public Resource Code 21080.66 based on the findings for the approval and subject to the conditions of approval with the recommended modifications.
And through the chair, if we could just specify what those recommended modifications are regarding the speed bumps, just since there have been some conversation around other ideas. Which I don't, if you want to put the slide ups, I mean.
Condition number 42, South Grant Street, the application shall perform a full width 2-inch grind and rubberized hot mix asphalt RHMA overlay of South Grant Street along the project frontage with 6-inch base repairs as needed. Existing speed humps will need to be replaced. The applicant shall remove and replace the existing sidewalk with new sidewalk and landscaping in substantial conformance with the approved tentative map.
Thanks.
I'll second.
However, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Shumkle,
Yes.
Vice Chair Clafter,
Yes.
Chair Patel,
Yes.
Commissioner Bush,
Yes.
and Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, and I will go ahead and close that item. Finally, on our agenda is notes and announcements. Do we have any notes and announcements from staff?
We do. Yes. So I think as you've heard, the February 24th meeting does not have any agenda items, so that one is canceled. On the next meeting would be March 10th, where we're anticipating you will have a project at 230 South El Camino on the agenda. And we wanted to let you know that on February 23rd? Yes, is the study session, the city council study session on the zoning code update. So if you are interested, you are welcome to tune in online and watch that.
Sorry, what day again is that?
Sorry?
What day again was that?
That is February 23rd.
Great.
Monday, February 23rd, yeah.
And the El Camino project is in March, did you say?
March 10th.
Okay, thanks.
I have an announcement.
Okay.
I believe I will be traveling that day on March 10th to the Planning Commissioner training. It starts on a Wednesday, and I'm trying to catch the Wednesday morning session, so I'll be actually leaving on the 10th
Okay.
to get there on time and in time and in one piece. So I will, I don't know, do I...
This is perfect. Just letting us know now.
Okay.
Yeah. And is anyone else traveling on that date? I just want to make sure that we'll have a quorum. Nope. Okay.
I will be, but I'm not your quorum.
Does anyone else have any announcements?
I think there's a survey related to the zoning code updates. So in case anyone hasn't taken it or taken a look at it, I haven't taken it yet, but I'm
You
going
can
to.
find it on the city's social media accounts if you're looking for it.
Oh, yeah, it's on the Strive San Mateo website, the general plan website. So yeah, thanks and anybody who's still watching, you are encouraged to take a look at that survey and take it as well. So thank you for that.
Perfect. If there are no more notes and announcements, I will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.